In the autumn of 2016, airline crews around the world started saying something that had never been said before in the history of commercial flight. Not switch it to airplane mode. Not put it in your checked bag. They said power it off completely, keep it off, and do not put it in the cargo hold, because it might catch fire mid-flight. That phone was Samsung's Galaxy Note 7, and it had been on shelves for less than 60 days. Before the dust settled, this single device would cost Samsung $5.3 billion, trigger the recall of over 3 million phones, and push the world's largest smartphone maker to the edge of a self-inflicted collapse. This is the story of how one engineering decision became one of the costliest failures in corporate history, and how Samsung fought its way back from it. The smartphone war. To understand why Samsung took the risk it did, you have to understand the war it was fighting. By 2016, Samsung and Apple were locked in a rivalry that had defined the entire smartphone decade, and Apple was about to release the iPhone 7. Samsung wanted to strike first, and strike hard. The Galaxy Note 7 was built to do exactly that. It was faster, sleeker, and more powerful than anything Samsung had shipped before, and at the center of that power push sat the battery. Consumers wanted longer battery life more than almost any other feature, so Samsung's engineers were pushed to cram a bigger battery into a thinner body than any Note phone before it. That single decision, more capacity squeezed into less space, would turn out to be the seed of the entire disaster. When the Note 7 launched in August 2016, it looked like a triumph. Reviewers loved it. Pre-orders shattered records, with some markets reporting the fastest sellout in the Note line's history. For a few brief weeks, Samsung had genuinely beaten Apple to the punch, and industry analysts were calling it the strongest Android flagship ever released. Nobody outside Samsung's supply chain knew that the very feature driving all that praise, the oversized battery wedged into a slimmer chassis, had already left almost no margin for error. The crisis. Within days of launch, reports began surfacing of Note 7 units overheating, smoking, and in some cases bursting into flame while charging. Samsung issued its first recall in September, pulling back 2.5 million phones and offering replacements it assured customers were safe. Then, on October 5th, a replacement Note 7, one of the safe units, started smoking on a Southwest Airlines plane still parked at the gate in Louisville, Kentucky. The plane was evacuated before it ever left the ground. That single moment is what turned a product recall into the airline bans, the news footage of scorched phones, and the 60-day meltdown that would define the rest of this story. It also meant the problem wasn't a single bad batch. It was something deeper in how the phone itself was engineered. By October, Samsung had no choice left. It killed the Note 7 completely, less than 2 months after launch, and told every retailer on Earth to stop selling it. The financial damage arrived fast. Samsung initially estimated the total cost of the crisis at around $3 billion. But as returns, disposal costs, and lost future sales piled up, that number climbed to at least $5.3 billion. In total, 3.06 million devices were recalled worldwide. Airlines from the United States to Australia banned the phone from flights entirely, an unprecedented step for a consumer electronics product. Analysts at the time floated an even darker number, warning the true cost in lost sales over the phone's expected life cycle could reach as high as $17 billion if Samsung couldn't recover its market position. Regulators in the United States logged dozens of overheating incidents and reports of burns and property damage, and images of scorched phones and melted car seats spread across the internet faster than Samsung's own statements could keep up. For a company that built its entire smartphone identity on trust and engineering pride, this wasn't just a recall. It was a public referendum on whether Samsung could be trusted at all. The recovery. What happened next is the part of the story most people never hear. Because Samsung's response became a case study in crisis management, done right instead of wrong. Rather than quietly settling the matter, Samsung commissioned an independent investigation involving outside battery experts and academic labs, and in January 2017, it did something almost no major tech company does. It held a public press conference and explained, in technical detail, exactly what had gone wrong. Investigators found the first battery supplier's cells were manufactured with a design flaw that caused the positive and negative electrodes to make contact, while the replacement supplier's cells suffered from a separate manufacturing defect involving missing insulation tape and sharp protrusions inside the battery casing. Two unrelated defects from two different suppliers, both traced back to the same root cause: a battery pushed past its safe limits to hit an ambitious specification in a race against Apple that left no room to slow down and double-check the engineering. Samsung didn't hide behind vague corporate language. It named the problem, showed the X-ray images, and outlined new 8-point safety checks it would apply to every battery in every future device. It backed that up with full-page apology ads in major newspapers and a recall completion rate that eventually topped 96%, remarkably high for a global consumer recall. Then came the real test. Samsung's next flagship, the Galaxy S8, launched just months later, carrying the weight of the company's entire credibility. And it sold well, helped by a marketing campaign that leaned directly into safety and battery testing, rather than avoiding the subject. The company followed with the Galaxy Note 8, deliberately built and marketed to prove the platform itself was safe, and it too succeeded. The turnaround in the numbers was staggering. Samsung's mobile division had seen its profit collapse by roughly 96% in the quarter the crisis hit hardest. Less than a year later, Samsung posted a record $9.9 billion quarterly net profit, driven by strong Galaxy S8 sales and its semiconductor business, and the quarter after that broke the company's own record again. The company that nearly torched its own reputation had turned the recovery itself into proof of the very reliability it had failed to deliver the first time. The payoff. So how did one phone cost Samsung $5.3 billion? It wasn't bad luck. It was a company optimizing so aggressively for one feature, battery capacity, that it quietly deprioritized the engineering margin needed to keep that battery safe, and it did so under competitive pressure to beat Apple to market. The cost wasn't just the phones themselves, it was every recalled unit, every disposed battery, every cancelled pre-order, and every dollar of future sales that evaporated the moment the brand's trustworthiness was in question. But the reason Samsung isn't a cautionary tale today, the reason most people now think of the Note 7 as a strange footnote rather than the company's downfall, is that Samsung treated transparency as the actual product it needed to rebuild. It answered a $5.3 billion engineering failure, with a level of public technical honesty that most corporations would never risk. And that honesty is precisely what money couldn't have bought back on its own. Remember that $17 billion worst-case number analysts floated back in Act 2, the one that assumed Samsung's brand might never recover. It never happened. Within a year, Samsung was posting record profits instead. Today, Samsung remains the largest smartphone manufacturer on Earth by units shipped. And the Note 7 disaster is taught in business schools not as a story of collapse, but as one of the clearest examples of how honest, technical, public accountability turned a $5.3 billion disaster into a foundation for trust. If you want to keep seeing the hidden financial stories behind the brands and products you thought you knew, make sure you're subscribed, and let us know in the comments, which company's biggest mistake should we investigate next?